Holy Mother Church chooses these two readings for this day in Passiontide with great deliberation, obviously. This reading about the false accusations against Susanna of having committed adultery, and then the Gospel from St. John about the woman caught in adultery are exactly parallel. They're not identical by any means, but they are certainly parallel. In the case of Susanna, she was completely innocent of the charges leveled against her, and it was the malice of the elders, those who were the guardians of the law, and their lust that led them to completely lie, to calumniate Susanna, even to the point that they were willing to bring charges against her that would end in her death, her execution. And of course God intervenes, and in this miraculous way by raising up Daniel, this little boy, giving him wisdom beyond his years and insight, and Susanna is delivered from the sentence and the wickedness of these individuals, and they are put to death themselves. Then in the Gospel today, the woman caught in adultery is not like Susanna. She is not innocent, and the charges brought against her are not lies. And yet those who bring the charges against her are not men of justice. They are also elders and the guardians of the law. And strictly speaking, they are following the dictate of the law. She was actually caught in adultery, and she had committed adultery, and according to the law, she was to be stoned. But the motives behind the action of the Pharisees in this case was not to uphold the law and execute justice. Their purpose, rather, was to trip our Lord up. And they were using the woman, they were using this poor, frail sinner as a tool to get at our Lord. And so our Lord saw through their malice, and He exempted the woman by means of His wisdom from the execution of a just sentence. In fact, St. Augustine reflects that when the woman was in the presence of the men who had the stones in their hand, the Pharisees, she was being threatened with death, and she was terrified, of course. And our Lord intervened, and by His revealing basically their sins to the Pharisees, He shooed them all off, and she was left alone with our Lord. And St. Augustine says if she had reasons to be afraid when she was laying on the ground and people were holding stones over her head ready to throw them at her, she had even more reason to be afraid when she was left alone with our Lord, because He could completely destroy her, and He had a real right to do so. And yet He did not. He asked her if there was no one to condemn her, and she said no. And He said, neither do I condemn you. Go on your way and sin no more. It isn't as though she didn't deserve the sentence according to the dictates of the old law, or even something worse, which is, of course, hell for all eternity. All of us who have committed mortal sins have deserved that sentence. But our Lord came into the world to liberate us from sin and to bring us to heaven. And so our Lord is much more patient with us than very often we are with other people. We should uphold the law and want to see justice done, but we should want to see justice done for the right reasons, not out of motives of revenge, and certainly not out of motives of malice, which were what was behind the Pharisees in respect to the woman caught in adultery and our Lord. We should want to see justice done because it is the right thing, and because we wish to see society living in the light of Christ and see that the innocent are protected. But in any case, in general, the spirit by which we should be motivated should be that which motivated our Lord, which is a spirit of mercy. We should not will the death of the sinner or the agony of the sinner, but that they might be healed and live. So we need to be patient with one another. This translates down into very real and practical decisions that we make from day to day, which probably don't have very often to do with executing the death penalty upon people that we know, but it does have to do with exercising justice within our family and with our children and with the people with whom we live, and at the same time knowing how to do so in a merciful fashion, hoping for the correction of the sinner, and recognizing at the same time that while we have to be just and uphold the rights of the innocent and protect our families and the society in which we live, today there's going to be another attempt on the part of the crazy legislators in our state to ram same-sex marriage down the church's throat again. We have to do something about these things, but in the end, none of us stand in the position of our Lord before that woman. Our Lord had a right to her life because he was God and because he was innocent. None of us are God, and in the end, none of us are innocent. We've all got it coming one way or another, and we need to remember that as we deal with one another.